Hi there, and welcome to 14 Days in the Life of a Cybersecurity Professional. In this video, you will see what I do over a 2-week period with explanations of how I balance work with my personal day-to-day life. This video has a heavy focus on finding happiness in day-to-day activities through self-organization techniques, minimalism in technology, and working towards goals, which I believe are major factors of my own life that have helped me to succeed. I've organized each day of this video to represent each thing I do to increase my productivity and overall mental health with what I would consider a healthy work-life balance. These are not things I do as one-off tasks, but something I do usually once per month. So it made sense to show what a 2-week period looks like. Let's begin. Each day, I usually wake up with a cup of coffee around 6 or 6:30 a.m. I then get myself to work, and I usually work at a different client office every 4 hours. So I usually start at one place, usually in the city, and then after 4 hours time, I go to some other place, which is also usually in the city. I work at these two places for 4 hours each block, and at each place, I usually do a security audit or at least get started on one because I'm at the same sort of clients each day. Sometimes the jobs are actually just automation tasks in things like Microsoft Flow or helping to manage an Azure AD environment. But the majority of my work and the main thing I do each day is working on security audits of systems and networks. Once I'm finished at work, I then make my way home. And when I get home, I usually just sort of chill out. I play on my computer, I make some music or sing or do whatever I really feel like. Maybe I'll even watch some TV in the lounge room. It's mostly just a chill out time to have some dinner and just sort of wind down and relax before getting started on my own personal projects. And that is basically a typical day in my life. And that happens usually each and every day. And after a while, it can get a little bit boring, a little bit monotonous. And that's just sort of the nature of working in any sort of office job in a professional environment. Now, in the next section of this video, we're going to go over a typical 14 days of changes that I would recommend, or at least giving a try your own version of, to help improve your work-life balance and basically push forward with not making things so boring. And I think that's something that a lot of people get really worried about when they look at jobs in cybersecurity, especially in SOC teams or network engineering or system administration roles, even help desk, where sometimes the job can be a little bit, streamlined and a little bit boring perhaps. So these 14-day tips are for you to get a better work-life balance and to have a better time at work as well as in your personal life. Alright, now let's talk a little bit about removing distractions. What I do to remove distractions from my life to make things a little bit simpler to be able to focus on the things that I actually want to do or achieve is to basically go through my devices first and essentially just disable every notification. It's pretty easy to do these days. You can, on an iPhone, you just go into notifications and click the button to turn them all off. But obviously I keep some of the critical stuff like my work things. I leave those notifications on for obvious reasons. Another thing I like to do on my phone, and I don't know if it's able to be done on Android, probably, I assume it would be, but that is to block calls from numbers that I don't know. So that includes unknown numbers as well as numbers that come through as a number that I don't have saved on my phone. I don't often receive phone calls from people that I don't already have saved on my phone. So when they do call me, and if it's someone that I'm actually waiting for a call on and I don't have their number, usually they'll just leave me a voicemail or send me a text message or an email anyway to follow up on whatever it was they wanted to ask me or tell me. Another thing I usually try to do in these like detox periods of removing all the distractions is to essentially just delete all of the apps that have anything to do with social media. The only problem I find with this is that when I have a detox from social media, I usually get a kickback later when I put those apps back on my phone that I just binge them for ages, and that they are truly like addictive applications, to be honest. Now, these are just techniques that I use to remove distractions from my life, and I find it works for me. It might not work for you. I don't know, give it a try and see for yourself. Maybe you'll be able to have a clearer mind of doing the things you want to do in those periods where you just want to have no noise in your life. Alrighty, the next thing that I like to do is a physical cleanup. So I've done the digital cleanup of removing distractions. The next one is to actually tidy up the space around me. Now, as you can see, my space is not too messy. My desk is pretty messy. I've got a fair bit of, work and stuff going on here at the moment. But my house is generally pretty clean. Like the couch behind me is usually empty, apart from my cat that's sleeping on there at the moment. Everything is either stored in a cupboard or in a box container somewhere that's hidden from view, so it's nice and tidy. And anyone who's ever been to my place would know that my house is kept very tidy. It's quite minimal in the way that things are laid out, and it's designed to be like that, as a nice, clean and tidy space where creative thought can take over, I find, for me anyway. And that just sort of separates me from the distraction of stuff that's around me. Now, this is like an ongoing practice that I find of essentially minimalizing the stuff that I have. And a way I sort of stay on top of that is by using as few devices as possible, because I find for me that's where most of my own clutter comes from. It's from all of the devices. Sometimes I start a project on something like a Raspberry Pi, and then I'll buy another Raspberry Pi because I need another one, and then I'll build on that project and stack them up, and it just gets out of control. You just end up with boxes of stuff everywhere that those components came in. You have wires all over the place. There's cables everywhere, and I know in this video you can see, just down below me there's wires hanging out, but that's because there is quite a lot of like audio and equipment and stuff going on here. So I'm just lazy to tidy up those cables, to be honest. Alrighty, the next section is on finding the things that you actually value. Now, for this, I use an app called Notion. You might be familiar with it. You can literally use any app you want. If you want to do it digitally, you can use a pen and paper, and basically all you're doing is writing down a list of the different things that you value. Now, on top of that list, what I would create is a list of goals next to the things that I value. So an example of that would be a YouTube channel. I value my YouTube channel. I think it's a great thing to have, and it has goals attached to it as well. Some of those goals might be something like, for me, it's to reach 100,000 subscribers. I think that would be an amazing goal. Maybe another goal to achieve that goal is to release more videos or do more live streams, or become maybe more active in the community on, wherever it is, like Twitter or Discord or whatever it is, to achieve those goals. Now, this section is sort of like the start of the next section, so we'll get into that one. Okay, so now you have your values, your goals, but what do you want to achieve out of these goals? Now, this is a slightly trickier question. Now, with this section, I find finding the things that I want to achieve out of completing those goals is easier found by creating a time frame on those goals. Now, this might start to get confusing, but stick with me. An example of this is what I call the DC Life Hub, which has a list of journals, some miscellaneous notes, travel journals, and short stories. In here, under my MISC notes, I have the ultimate list of things. And in here is essentially my big ideas of different things that I want to achieve, and how long they're going to take, what the benefits are, and a short description of exactly what they are, just in case I forget and then come back, because there's quite a lot of items in this list. So as we can see here on my list, I have become a father in maybe 2023 or 2024. How to get this is, there's a big discussion and decision that needs to be made here for this to come true. It's not entirely up to me. The tags I've associated this with are China, Australia, happiness, and fun. And the reason I put those tags in there is just so I know roughly where these things might occur geographically, and what sort of tags I would put with them. So is it fun? Yes, I think it's fun. Is it going to make me happy? Absolutely. Is it going to be in Australia or China? Maybe both, who knows? The next one is pretty self-explanatory. The item is open a cafe in Kunming, which is a city in China. The plan for this to happen is in 2023 or later. And the description is to first move to Kunming, then once we're there, find a space for the cafe, which I've actually already done. Fit out the space, find some staff to work in the cafe, organize the coffee beans, the different types of milks, etc., to be able to create a cafe. Now this has the tags of China and obviously money. Now the money is also going to be a downside as well as an upside, because it costs money to start any sort of business like this, especially a brick and mortar type business. But the projections that I've done on starting this kind of business is one that I believe can make money. So it can make money, it could lose money, who knows? You don't know until you sort of get going, right? I've got some other items here like work 100% remote for myself, learn to draw, write a book of short stories. And some of these, as you can see, are lifelong things. Some of them are happy and fun. Some of them are about finding life balance. And some of them are about a better health for myself. So focusing on being a healthier person. Depending on who you talk with is if they tell you or not that remote work is healthy for you or not. I believe for myself it is a healthy choice. Now, just going back to goals, once you have your achievements, your values, you want to figure out how to create goals of the achievement. So you've gone value, goal, achievement, goal. And I know this seems extremely thorough, but this is literally what I do to achieve anything that I want to do. Big life goals, things that I think are valuable to me. Okay, on to finding happiness. Now this is, it's a never-ending story, basically, of finding happiness and becoming a happier person in general. As I said earlier with my list of, the big list of things that I have that I just showed you, finding the things that I think will make me happy are usually the ones that I try to achieve first. Now this might just be an echo of my own personality. It probably is, but I like to be a happy person. Some people maybe don't like to be happy. Maybe they like to be sad. I don't know. But I like to be really happy. So I always chase the things that will make me happy so that I can be happy and enjoy myself. And I find that doing the things that make me happy motivate me to do some of the things that are maybe a little bit harder. Something that's gonna cost more money and put some pressure on me, or something that needs to be done really fast. It's easier to get those done when you're in a better state of mind, and this is what I mean by finding happiness. Okay, if you've made it this far through the video, congratulations, and you are on the pathway to success, I hope. We're up to day number 8, or item number 8, which is death to social media. Now, social media for me is one of those things that I really do get addicted to. I love posting about the things going on in my life and seeing the likes come in, and I think it's just an ego thing. I'm not too sure, but I am, I really enjoy posting stuff and getting likes. The problem here is that when you don't post something, or you don't get as many likes as you maybe thought you would get, and this is something that comes along that I've found with having an internet presence, is that these things really do sort of get in the way of happiness. So what I usually do is to delete all of my social media apps from my phone. The reason I do this is because it's then the only option for me to use those apps is to either re-download them, which is banned. That's banned in my life. Or to use them on the computer, which is far less convenient, because despite what maybe some of you think, I actually don't spend a huge amount of time in front of my computer. I go to work every day, I use my computer, I come home, and it doesn't even come out of my bag in most cases. I usually just use my phone or my iPad while watching TV, or I'm usually out of the house entirely. I like the house to be my sort of sanctuary of happiness, and to achieve that, I can't really use my computer here, because the computer for me means work. And if I have my computer on like I do now, then I'm doing some form of work. almost every single time. Sure, I could play games on my computer, but they take way too much time out of my schedule, and I honestly just don't have time to play that many games. So if I have my computer on, it's either to make YouTube videos like this, or to do other forms of work, maybe writing reports or doing some Safer Internet Project meetups or whatever it is. That's the computer's job. Social media is just such a bitch, to be honest. But DC, what do you do without your social media? How do you replace the addiction of social media? I'm glad you asked. What I usually do is, if you saw earlier on my Notion, I have the DC Life Hub, where I write journals every few days usually. Now, these journals for me are usually long form documents. They're pretty lengthy. If I was to put it on a like Microsoft Word or something, they'd probably be 3 to 4 pages each. They're kind of long. The reason I do it like this is for one good reason, one major reason, actually 2 good reasons. The first one, and I think the most important, is that it exhausts me. I just get sick of doing this, and it's addicting to talk about myself to myself, but it's also nice to not have any expectations on what's going to be read in there, because no one reads it. It's just me who reads those documents, and usually after I've posted them, they just get forgotten about in the history of time. Maybe one day I'll go back and look through them and create a memoir of my life of really fucked up situations that I've written about. But until that day happens, no one will ever read any of those blog posts, and that's fine. It's kind of good actually, because it comes with no expectation. I can write whatever I want. So for me, this is a replacement of an addiction to social media, and I find it very addicting to use social media, as I've said. So to replace that addiction, I essentially use blogging or journaling as my other addiction to replace those addictions. This is, for me, the only way I can get away from social media. Is I have a need to talk, and I know that no one wants to read everything I have to say. I mean, you would just get bored reading all of the rubbish that goes on in my life. So it's just not that fun, and it's not something that I really ever want to share. With these blog posts, I also put in photos of different events happening. So usually the journals are about the day that happened, the big event of that day. And every day has its own event, really. If it's, maybe one day you had a curry, and it was an amazing curry, and you took some photos of that curry, and it was bonza. It was really good curry. That's one journal. You talk about this curry, for example. The next day, your story is about how that curry gave you diarrhea or something, right? And it was exhausting. You had to drink water for hours and hours, and you really wish you hadn't got sick off that curry, but damn, it was a good curry. Just something like that. It's a terrible example, but All right, we're up to the 10th day, or the 10th item in this list, and that is the devices I find that help me get through these periods. Now, as I've said a little bit before, I only really have 3 devices. The first one is the iPad that I'm recording this video on at the moment. The second one is my computer, which you can see right next to me. The third one, it's my phone. I use my phone probably the most out of all of the devices I have, and I think that is the same for most people. I think most people use their phone more than any other device that they have. Now, for me, it's quite peaceful to only have 3 devices. I have a whole bunch of really old computers that I used to run Linux distros on and stuff like that, but my current laptop is powerful enough to run virtual machines. You can run cloud virtual machines. You can have multiple computers online if you really, really want to. I prefer not to. I like to have a nice, simple life with only 3 devices that are relatively synced. With the use of things like cloud storage, maybe OneDrive or Dropbox or iCloud or whatever the hell you want to use, you can store your documents online, as you probably know, and keep all of your devices synced together with your different files if you ever need to access them. What I like to do though is to keep my computer for work. It's work only. My iPhone is for games, messages, and just general note-taking, photos, all that sort of good stuff. And my iPad is for drawing, editing videos now, sometimes making music. I like to plug in my a guitar into a preamp and then into my iPad so I can record it and play around with things like GarageBand, whatever it is. So if I was to split it out, the iPhone is somewhere in between everything. I do a lot of work and a lot of personal stuff on my iPhone. My iPad is all about creativity and having fun, and my laptop is purely work. There's a method to the madness here, which is that by splitting out these devices into 3 different things, the iPhone is the one that's always on me. It's always in my pocket. I always use it. It kind of needs to be somewhere in between. The work laptop is the work laptop. It's a laptop that does work for me. It's my main source of income. It is done all through the laptop. So I leave it as that. And my iPad is to, I guess, nurture my creativity. I would consider myself a fairly creative person, and I like to have my iPad to enhance the ability of creating things, whatever they are. It's time for work-life balance. Now, work-life balance is probably the one thing I struggle with the most, even more than social media. I really love working. I struggle with disconnecting from work, and that's an observation of myself. I think I'm fairly self-aware on this point. Work-life balance for me is what I would consider a 50-50 balance, because that's, right in the middle. So for example, I was going to be working for 9 hours a day. I would like to have another 9 hours of personal time to be doing something that is not work. Now, drawing the line there is quite hard, because a lot of the time, especially with owning a business, or in my case, a few businesses, it's really tricky to stay away from work all the time. And this is one major reason why I split out my devices, like I said before, to the work is all done on the laptop, etc. As I explained at the very, very start of this video on what a typical day at work looks like for me, that is almost every day. And while that can be quite boring, by separating out your life and having a correct work-life balance, I find it's much easier. Now, a lot of people sort of wonder about cybersecurity work-life balance, and to be honest, it's just like any other office job, where you either go into the office or work remotely. You do your allocated time or hours that you have on your salary or contract or whatever it is, and then that's it. You finish your work. Now, sure, there is like outage periods where you need to do certain work after hours, because you can't do that work while a production environment is running, and that's normal across a lot of different areas of IT to have to do those bits of work after hours. Now, saying that doesn't happen every day. It might happen once a week, and it's like an extra 2 to 3 hours maybe, depending on what the job is, of course, but it's not something that happens often. The only trap you can sort of fall into here is by pushing yourself to do more after hours work. And this is something that I used to do when I was younger. I'd do so much work after hours, and I think a lot of it was because of imposter syndrome, basically, where I didn't think I was good enough to do the job. So I would just keep working and working and working to try and figure stuff out. And maybe it benefited me, probably not. I mean, I got really stressed at a lot of points there, and I don't really get too stressed too often. So doing all of this work after hours, after already working for hours and hours, it was kind of dumb, to be honest, and I should have put my foot down at the start. No one expected me to do it. I just ended up doing it, and it was a bad choice. So just, don't do it. Don't work too much after hours. You don't have to. No one expects you to do it. If they do, maybe you should bring that up with whoever's asking you to do that job, to say, look, I've already worked this much overtime. I think that's enough. Maybe you need to hire another resource to do this work, because it's just too much. All right, let's talk about eating less and eating better. So for me, eating less has been the biggest game changer for me, being healthy and clear-minded. I suffer from severe headaches fairly often, and eating healthily and having less access to devices definitely seems to help me. My typical day starts with an ice long black, then drinking as much water as possible throughout the day, and eating whole foods for dinner, like a roast with roasted vegetables or homemade burgers or whatever, stir fry, soups made with veggies and as little meat as possible, but nothing in particular that's like really healthy, just more focusing on it being a whole food meal. I don't really count calories or macros. I just sort of eat whatever I feel is right. So I've got here a photo of the food that I would normally buy at the grocery store for a week of food. And this typically costs me around $100 to buy this food in Australia. Yes, it's expensive because I usually get the organic versions of whatever it is, but I mean, you can do it on a budget and make life a little bit cheaper for yourself. Now you notice that there's a lot of veggies here and not a lot of meat, and that's because I like to have a ratio of around 30% meat to 70% vegetables. The reason for this is that I don't think that eating as much meat as I used to eat is very good for me. With my body type and metabolism, I can stack on weight like there's no tomorrow. I could literally smell a donut and feel like I've gained 10 kilos. It's just horrible. So what I do is I usually skip breakfast and lunch and just have a really nice dinner and eat basically whatever I like. The only thing that gets me by in the morning is my Ice Long Black, which is, I believe, really close to 0 calories or you know, as close to it as possible. And then to stay full throughout the day, I just drink a lot of water. Now, I don't really like starve myself, I don't think. I know at the start when I first started doing this, I would be really hungry all the time. But over time, it's worked out pretty well. I don't really get hungry during the day anymore. I just have my nice big meal at nighttime, usually around 6 o'clock. And that's me. That's me for the rest of the 24 hours. All right, let's talk about exercise and working out, my least favorite things to do. For me, exercise is it's a bit of a struggle. I hate working out and I dislike the whole gym culture in general, but I still do workouts that make me feel good. So for me, walking is my happiness exercise. I usually walk around 5 to 10 kilometers at a time, roughly every 2 to 3 days. And I also go to the gym maybe 2 or 3 to 3 days per week. Now with the gym, I usually focus on weight training, and it's nothing really super crazy, to be honest. It's just the exercises that I enjoy. So sitting down at a desk all day, I tend to, lean forward and get a sore back. So I usually do exercises that will stretch my shoulders backwards so that I get a really good feeling across my chest and down my spine. Now, that's just the exercises I do, and they're usually just some sort of machine thing, like a bench press or a machine like that will push those muscles and bones and whatever else around. I think I'm in a decent shape. I mean, I'm not like ripped or, I'm not really super fat either. I think I'm pretty healthy weight. And I just like to do those exercises to try and stretch those muscles. But the one thing that really makes me feel good as far as exercise go is walking. And walking for me is something that it's almost like meditation, to be honest, because I can just walk and think and just be myself in the world, just a human walking around and enjoy myself. And that might sound really wispy and a bit lame, but give it a try. I mean, have a walk for 5 to 10 kilometers and your legs will get sore. Maybe you'll enjoy the views depending on where you're walking. And yeah, it's just good. With when I go walking, I usually go around the city. I live around 2 kilometers out of the city, so I walk from my place into the city and then around the river, because there's a river that goes straight through the middle of the city that I live in. And I don't really choose a direction to go. I just sort of walk aimlessly for about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, until I feel tired enough to go home. I also try to stand up at work as much as possible. And this is because with sitting down, I feel like I have a lot of lower back pressure. And also recently, after having surgery on my butt, sitting down wasn't really an option for about 3.5 weeks. So I had to stand up the entire time, and I just got used to it. So this desk that I'm on here it's actually a raised desk. You can lift it up and you can do whatever you like with it. It's a good desk. It's a IKEA desk, nothing fancy or anything. But I have a similar setup at work, and the different places I go to, some of them have raising desks, some of them don't, whatever. I just try and stand up as much as possible while I'm working. All right, we are up to the last day of a 2-week cycle of life detox, finding happiness, whatever you want to call it. This last day is all about changing my mindset to be optimistic for a better future, no matter what happens. It's probably the hardest thing to achieve on this whole list of 14 things, but as many things happen in life that affect how you think and feel, I find that focusing on caring less about what happens around me and just sort of focusing on the tasks I want to achieve out of that big list of things I want to achieve is essentially as focused on myself as I could possibly be. I find with doing these things, I just become a happier person, and that's my experience. It might be yours if you want to give these items a try, but yeah, I mean, my friends have noticed, they've seen, different changes in my life and bad situations, and sometimes they're like, oh, you're really down. Or other times they're like, oh, you're always so happy. And I find that after making these changes in my life that, the comments are usually more along the lines of, how are you always so happy? Like, you're always smiling. You're always, seem to be a happy person who's enjoying life. And I find that it's really related to these things that I do, is that's how I find happiness. And hopefully these items on the list will help you as well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. If you guys made it through the entire video, thank you so much. It really means a lot that if you actually watch through the entirety of this video, however long it went for after I've edited it, thank you so much. It really does mean a lot to me. If you could also like this video and subscribe if you're new here, that would be fantastic. If you have any questions or you want to make some comments, please do leave them in the comments below. And yeah, I'll see if I can answer them and potentially help you out and, give you some examples of different things you could do in your life to achieve a level of happiness that you feel comfortable with. I am by no means a professional. I'm just talking from my own life experiences. But yeah, I mean, these things worked for me, so maybe they'll work for you. I don't know, but I think they're all good things to try and essentially build up yourself from to become potentially more successful and happy as a side effect of that. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace out.